Look who finally got back from a honeymoon in the bathroom mirror.
Knock it off, JJ. Your mouth is always ahead of your think piece.
I suggest you look after all that time in there.
In the early 1970s, network television in the United States was on the brink of a revolution. America's cultural climate was shifting after the civil rights movement, and entertainment began to open its doors, albeit slowly, to more diverse stories and perspectives.
Breakfast is ready if you're hungry. If you're not, check the furniture. You're in the wrong apartment. Jane!
A gorgeous hunk of woman here.
I don't know about the gorgeous, but I'm sure a lot of hunk.
Among the shows that emerged during this transformative period, one stood out for its unique premise, memorable characters, and attempt to portray an authentic slice of Black life in the inner city. That show was Good Times. Premiering in 1974, Good Times was a sitcom that followed the Evans family, living in the Cabrini Green housing projects of Chicago. Created by Eric Monty and Mike Evans, yes, the same Mike Evans who portrayed Lionel Jefferson on All in the Family, and developed by Norman Lear, the show promised humor, realism, and heart. Viewers welcomed the sitcom as a refreshing look into the triumphs and trials of a working-class Black family. With the charismatic John Amos and the formidable Esther Rolle anchoring the ensemble, Good Times was poised to break barriers. But as the seasons went on, the original vision of showcasing a strong, dignified Black family unit found itself at odds with ratings, fame, and network demands. Before we delve into the controversies, let's remember why Good Times captured hearts in the first place. The Evans family, Florida, James, JJ, Thelma, and Michael, represented a tightly knit unit. Despite the hardships of poverty, unemployment, and the cramped realities of project life, they always found joy and humor in one another. Their unbreakable bond, grounded by Florida's moral compass and James's firm but loving discipline, made them relatable to audiences across racial and socioeconomic lines. However, beneath that laughter lay a fierce commitment by certain cast members, particularly Esther Rolle, Florida, and John Amos, James, to challenge harmful stereotypes. They aimed to offer authentic storytelling and nuance, far beyond the comedic relief that networks often demanded. This tension between what the show was and what it could have been set the stage for conflict, and that conflict would soon overshadow the bright beginnings of Good Times. Esther Rolle's presence as Florida Evans was central. She was no stranger to playing a resilient matriarch. She had already originated the role on Maude before Good Times even began. Esther believed strongly that television had the power to shape public perception, especially about Black families. She insisted that Good Times portray the Evanses as hardworking, supportive, and morally upright, even in the face of systemic challenges. Then there was John Amos, who portrayed James Evans. John's background, an athlete turned actor, brought a strong physical and emotional presence to the show. Much like Esther, he was deeply concerned about the direction in which the show was heading. While James Evans was initially a strong father figure, both John and Esther noticed shifts in scripting, episodes that seemed to pivot toward broad comedy at the expense of genuine social commentary. Both actors pushed back. They had heated debates with producers and writers, pointing out how certain jokes or plot lines could perpetuate stereotypes about the Black community, particularly those involving JJ, the eldest son. Despite these concerns, network executives were enamored by one aspect of the show's success: comedic ratings gold. In every popular show, there's often a standout character, the breakout who captures viewer attention in a unique way. For Good Times, that was JJ Evans, portrayed by Jimmie Walker. With his trademark exclamation, "Dy-no-mite," JJ quickly became a household name and a merchandising dream. Audiences laughed, t-shirts sold, and the network saw this as a reason to steer the show toward JJ's antics. But while JJ was undeniably funny, many felt the character devolved into a caricature. John Amos in particular spoke out, stating that he believed JJ's depiction as a goofball overshadowed the show's attempts at serious storytelling. Esther Rolle echoed these sentiments, worried that a one-dimensional portrayal could reinforce negative stereotypes about young Black men. The tension between comedic success and meaningful content created a rift. The more producers leaned into JJ's slapstick routines, the more John Amos and Esther Rolle felt the show was losing sight of its mission. Behind the scenes, arguments flared. Producers, including Norman Lear, who had championed socially relevant sitcoms like All in the Family, found themselves balancing creative integrity with viewer demand. The network saw the comedic approach as a guaranteed rating spike. The cast, especially John Amos, saw it as a betrayal of what Good Times originally promised. Matters reached a boiling point when John Amos publicly criticized the show's direction in interviews. He did not mince words about how the writers, many of whom were white, lacked first-hand knowledge of black experiences. This, he argued, led to simplistic or stereotypical storytelling. Esther Rolle also supported this perspective, though in a more measured tone. As conflicts grew more intense, something had to give. The solution, from the network's standpoint, was swift: remove the problem. John Amos was dismissed from Good Times at the end of its third season, leaving fans stunned as James Evans was killed off in a sudden off-screen accident. The father figure of the show, one of the few positive black father figures on American TV at the time, was abruptly written out. With John gone, the show continued under the matriarchal leadership of Florida Evans. Esther Rolle soldiered on for a while longer, but her dissatisfaction grew. She criticized the growing reliance on JJ's antics, which she felt made the show ridiculous. At one point, she gave producers an ultimatum: develop JJ more responsibly or allow her to leave. The producers didn't meet her demands, and Esther eventually exited the show as well, though she later returned in a reduced capacity after negotiations. These departures signaled that the initial vision for Good Times was fading away. With two of the show's anchors gone or minimized, Good Times shifted even more toward comedic elements. JJ's popularity soared in terms of public recognition, but behind the scenes, it wasn't all laughter. Tensions with the remaining cast and crew cast a shadow on Walker's rise. While he relished the fame, Jimmie Walker also became a lightning rod for criticism, both from viewers who felt he perpetuated stereotypes and from co-stars who believed the show had lost its heart. Some fans saw JJ as a clownish depiction, concerned it reinforced the notion that black men were irresponsible or silly. Others found him endearing and claimed he was a comedic genius whose portrayal brought laughter into America's living rooms. This tug-of-war, both in public opinion and behind the scenes, encapsulated the larger struggle of Good Times. Was it a groundbreaking show highlighting real-life struggles, or was it an overblown comedy that cashed in on the broadest laughs? Even after the show ended in 1979, many cast members experienced tough times. Good Times was no longer on the air, but the controversies surrounding it seemed to follow the actors into the real world. John Amos post Good Times. While John Amos did find roles in films such as Coming to America and Die Hard 2, he frequently spoke about how challenging it was to secure the kind of substantive work he desired. He remained vocal about his experiences on Good Times, which may have led some studios or producers to view him as difficult. Esther Rolle's battle for respect. Esther Rolle continued to act in film and television, earning recognition for her talent, but her dissatisfaction with Hollywood's treatment of black actors persisted. She was known to reject roles that she felt were demeaning, limiting her opportunities in a system that often wanted token representation rather than genuine depth. Jimmie Walker's typecasting. Despite being a stand-up comedian prior to and after Good Times, Jimmie Walker struggled to break away from the Dy-no-mite catchphrase. Casting agents often wanted that brand of humor, typecasting him as the goofy sidekick. This phenomenon is common in Hollywood, but the sting was sharper for a black actor whose work was already under intense scrutiny. Other cast members, individuals like Jeanette Dubois, Willona, Ralph Carter, Michael, and Bernadette Stanis, Thelma, found themselves in a mix of smaller roles, stage work, or entirely new careers outside of Hollywood. Many reported difficulty escaping the shadow of Good Times, either pigeonholed as comedic performers or viewed as relics of a different era in TV. Was this all just happenstance, or could it be that speaking out about creative control and authentic black representation put them at odds with an industry that preferred easily marketable stereotypes? The answer likely sits somewhere in the murky intersection of Hollywood politics, audience demands, and a long history of underrepresenting black voices. Let's pause for a moment and consider the question. Could Good Times have continued on its original track, focusing on real issues, showing a stable black father and mother guiding their kids through poverty while balancing humor and heart? Or was it doomed from the start by network pressures to prioritize comedy above all else? Some television historians argue that if the show had maintained its social awareness, it might have lasted fewer seasons, but its legacy could have been even more profound. Others believe that the comedic slant is what kept it on air for 6 seasons, ensuring that the show reached a broad audience. In either case, the philosophical divide between a push for authenticity and the pursuit of ratings was evident. By the time Good Times ended in 1979, it had aired 133 episodes. The final season saw Florida Evans returning as a mother figure, though the show's original soul had shifted. JJ was still the comedic centerpiece, but the tone was different without James Evans' presence and with Florida's authority diluted by creative changes. For many fans, Good Times remains beloved despite its controversies. It broke ground by placing a black family at the heart of a primetime sitcom and did tackle serious subjects like racial profiling, gang violence, and systemic poverty, even if those stories often took a backseat to catchphrases. When Good Times is viewed through the lens of entertainment history, certain patterns emerge. Black-led shows often face a precarious tightrope walk between authentic cultural representation and mainstream palatability. Esther Rolle, John Amos, Amos, and Jimmie Walker each experienced the highs of television success, yet also faced professional or personal lows shaped by the show's controversies. John Amos continued to speak candidly about the show's downfall, pointing to the unfulfilled potential of offering a balanced portrayal of a strong black family. Esther Rolle emphasized that while comedy was crucial, it should never degrade the people it aimed to represent. Jimmie Walker, meanwhile, found himself forever associated with Dy-no-mite, a blessing and a curse that overshadowed his broader comedic talents. One of the saddest chapters in the story of Good Times is how some cast members faced personal misfortunes, career setbacks, financial difficulties, or disillusionment with the industry. In an era where networks had far more power and fewer channels to compete with, defying the creative vision of executives often meant stalling or ending an actor's prospects in mainstream entertainment. Whether it was typecasting, limited opportunities for black performers, or the backlash from publicly challenging writers, the cast found that success during the run of Good Times did not translate into an easy path afterward. Many fans remain unaware of the depth of these struggles, remembering only the fun catchphrases and memorable family moments. Despite the drama behind the scenes, the finished episodes rarely betrayed the tensions on set. Through laughter, well-timed jokes, and the occasional heartwarming moral lesson, Good Times presented a united front, an illusion that everything was fine. But consider the heartbreak of losing a principal cast member to an off-screen death because of creative differences. Imagine the frustration of an actress who fought for her character's dignity and got labeled difficult for demanding nuanced scripts. That sense of unity on screen contrasted with the very real conflicts of ego, race, and business that simmered off camera. It's a testament to the actors' professionalism that they delivered performances that continue to resonate. As time went on, Good Times has been both criticized and praised. On one hand, critics say it leaned into buffoonery and cheap laughs, especially at the expense of JJ. On the other hand, defenders point out it was one of the first series to regularly talk about black issues, albeit in a comedic format. This duality defines Good Times, a show caught in a tug-of-war between serious representation and mainstream comedy. Its legacy is complicated. If you watch the early seasons, you see a nuanced, grounded depiction of a loving but struggling black family. By the later seasons, the tone is undeniably lighter, with slapstick moments outnumbering the serious ones. And that shift marks the heartbreak of Good Times. Its potential was far greater than what the network ultimately allowed. Although decades have passed since Good Times first aired, audiences continue to wonder about the cast. Here's a brief look at what became of the principal actors after the show. John Amos, James Evans, continued to work in film and TV, but openly discussed how speaking up on Good Times cost him some roles. Despite this, he was widely respected for standing firm on issues of representation. Esther Rolle, Florida Evans, she remained a respected figure until her passing in 1998. Esther was awarded an Emmy for a later performance and is remembered as a strong advocate for dignified roles for black women. Jimmie Walker, J.J. Evans, maintained a presence in stand-up comedy and occasional acting gigs. He's candid about both appreciating and sometimes resenting the Dy-no-mite fame that has followed him for decades. Ralph Carter, Michael Evans, transitioned into theater and music, stepping away from the spotlight for long stretches. Fans remember him as the socially conscious, militant midget who always questioned the system. Bernadette Stanis, Thelma Evans, explored writing and occasional acting roles. She authored books about relationships and personal development, preserving her status as an iconic black TV daughter. Jeanette Dubois, Willona Woods, went on to co-write and sing the theme song for The Jeffersons, Movin' On Up, and remained a familiar face on TV until her passing in 2020. For younger generations discovering Good Times via reruns or streaming services, the charm and warmth remain evident. Yet, understanding the show's behind-the-scenes battles offers a more complete picture. This is why the saga of Good Times stands as a cautionary tale. No matter how noble your creative intentions, the entertainment industry's commercial demands can redirect even the most well-meaning show. It also serves as a testament to actors like Esther Rolle and John Amos, who risked their careers to stand against reductive portrayals. Though it cost them dearly in the short term, their legacy includes paving the way for more substantial roles and narratives for black families on television. So when we talk about a star's downfall, it's more than just the idea that Jimmie Walker's comedic style overshadowed the show, or that John Amos was unceremoniously fired. It's about how the entire production veered off its original path, sacrificing the depth and aspirations that first made it stand out. In a broader sense, Good Times remains a landmark in black television history, both for what it achieved and for what it might have achieved had the actors' voices been heard. Did Good Times give us laughter and memorable one-liners? Absolutely. Did it also shortchange some of its most talented performers in service of those laughs? Very possibly. At the end of the day, it's the show's dual legacy, forging a path for Black sitcoms while embodying the pitfalls of an industry that too often values ratings over representation. And that's the real tragedy behind the scenes. What do you think? Was Good Times doomed from the moment the network realized JJ's catchphrases were a goldmine? Did Esther Rolle and John Amos do the right thing by speaking out, even if it meant losing their prominent roles? Join the conversation in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you want more deep dives into the hidden truths of classic TV shows. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more untold stories of classic television.